Dramatic twist in the case against Casey Anthony as Casey, accused of murdering her adorable daughter Kaylee, sits in jail. Is her defense team botching her case? Her lead attorney, Jose Baez, is not death penalty qualified, so he has announced he has hired a qualified attorney to join Team Casey. Yet he continues to do depositions of key players in the case without that mystery lawyer present. So could Baez's lack of experience in capital cases jeopardize his client when this circus moves to trial, whatever that might be? Or perhaps worse, in the eyes of some, could it open up grounds for appeal if Casey is ultimately convicted? Plus, in a jaw-dropping twist, WFTV reports that Baez is set to depose a DCF, that's Department of Children and Family Services worker, who investigated a previous child abuse accusation against Casey. Wow! We've checked and we've never heard of child services investigating Casey before her little girl went missing. So what's all this about? Also, the Orange County Corrections Department says a former inmate's shocking story about another Casey jailhouse meltdown is totally bogus. That Casey has been a very cooperative prisoner. But remember when Casey lashed out at mom Cindy in jail just last year?
Can someone let me... Come on!
Casey, hold on, sweetheart. Settle down, baby.
Nobody's letting me speak. You want me to talk? Then...
All right,
I'll
listen to you.
3 seconds to see
Go,
something.
Sweetheart. Is there anything there?
Mom! I'm sorry. I love you guys. I miss you.
Right, sweetheart. Here's Dad. Hold on.
No, I'm gonna hang up and just walk away right now.
Does Casey's history of partying and lashing out give more credence to the former inmate's story? We will debate it all. But first, my expert panel: Rebecca Rose Woodland, criminal defense attorney; Judy Kuriansky, Dr. Judy, clinical psychologist; Drew Finley, Atlanta criminal defense attorney; and Judge Karen Mills, Francis, host of the Judge Karen Show. I want to start with Rebecca Rose Woodland. Is Jose Baez making a big boo-boo by going ahead with these depositions of cops and all sorts of other people, even though this is a death penalty case and he is not death penalty qualified?
You know, Jane, I have to start. I hate to say this, but yes, I believe he is. He's not qualified in Florida. In Florida, you have to be qualified by the court to try a death penalty case because your client is facing death. It is so serious. There is a second phase to the trial. If the jury finds her guilty, which they may or may not, if they do, you go on to the death penalty phase. There is so much involved. You provide mitigating circumstances why your client should not be put to death, as the prosecution provides all of their evidence why they should. You have to be qualified in Florida. So you need an attorney who is. He is not.
All right, let me say this. Casey's defense team, as you mentioned, none of whom are death penalty qualified in the state of Florida, announced last week they've hired this new mystery attorney to the team. However, they aren't announcing who the mystery lawyer is.
Yeah, why not?
This new lawyer will attend the next court hearing on May 28th, where this person's secret identity will be revealed. Now, Drew Finling, why all this secrecy? Is this a publicity stunt? Have they perhaps not hired anyone? Or, as one legal expert suggested, is this a defense team addicted to drama?
Well, let me say this, and that is that there are very few cases in which you can afford to retain somebody in a death penalty case. I have personally defended cases where I've been hired and it's changed over to the government paying because nobody can afford you to represent them in a death penalty case. Because
what do you mean? I don't understand.
Because there is so much work now to be done. It is just not a guilt-innocence case. You have to prepare for the possibility of your client being found guilty and fighting for their life.
What does that have to do with revealing the person's name?
Well, I don't know where they're coming up with the money for this person, and it makes me suspicious that they have somebody or somebody that'd be willing to do it for next to nothing. So my thought is that if there is, that I'm surprised there's no judicial intervention right now, because I can tell you this: if a new lawyer comes on that's death qualified, they're going to want to redo all these depositions, and most courts are going to let them do it.
That's not going to happen. Jane?
Well, why not?
Jane, you know what? We've been talking a lot about this for the last 3 or 4 weeks, about the fact that
3 or 4 weeks, like maybe.
I'm talking about, you and I have been talking about it, about Baez not being death qualified. You know, the Florida Rule of Criminal Procedure is 3.112. And what that rule says is that no attorney shall be appointed by the court in a capital case who doesn't meet these qualifications.
Right.
And when the Florida Supreme Court promulgated this rule, they weren't thinking about a case like Casey Anthony, because 99% of all defendants in capital cases are represented by the Office of the Public Defender or private attorneys who've been appointed by the court.
Point.
So Baez really is off the hook. He doesn't have to be death qualified because she hired him.
Well,
now,
he doesn't have to be.
No,
he doesn't have to be death qualified, but ultimately his case would be subjected to an 11th Circuit review if it were a death. And an 11th Circuit, he'd be dead meat, and the court would be dead meat for letting it go forward without a death qualified
The
lawyer.
United States Supreme Court has said the only issue on appeal is whether or not she had adequate representation.
That's the whole point.
No.
Representation.
That is not what the Supreme Court says. It's a deficiency, and if the deficiency causes prejudice. If you don't know how to handle a death penalty case, which is a complete specialty unto itself, you are being set up for a case to be reversed.
Let's move on to the next big issue. Let's move on to the next big issue. You know, Casey's jailhouse freakout. She bugged out, of course, on Cindy and George last year, and we saw that. There's the famous bug out there. With that in mind, let's take another look at what former inmate Terry Thomas told Radar Online about Casey Anthony's demeanor when told that prosecutors would seek the death penalty.
She had tears in her eyes and she was screaming, "I'm pissed." Looked directly into my room and said, "Help me." She was laid down on this leather, it was a leather bed per se, but the bed was concave, so it wasn't a bed as if you were going to sleep on it. And they strapped her down.
Did she struggle at all? Or?
Of course she struggled, yes.
As they were tying her?
As they were tying her down.
These leather straps, she was struggling?
Absolutely, crying and agitated.
Sounds like a scene right out of the snake pit. But Orange County Corrections spokesperson Alan Moore responded saying, quote, "I have been able to confirm that there was no time in which inmate Anthony had to be placed on a restraint bed. Additionally, there is no indication that the incident as described in the tabloid media ever occurred. As we have stated before, Casey Anthony has been a very cooperative inmate who follows jail rules and has created no operational problems or disruptions." Dr. Judy, given her wild history of partying and out-of-control behavior, and I'm sure we have a few of those photos to show you, is she a likely candidate for model prisoner?
I doubt it sincerely. She has very what we call labile emotions. Those are all over the place. They go up, they go down. I could certainly see her saying she's pissed at getting the death penalty thrown at her, potentially. And the point is that most people would be angry, they would be depressed, they would be frantic. But that word, "I'm pissed," is very indicative from a psychological point of view. It shows the anger and the impulsiveness that's in her that fits, in my view, with the potential that she could have murdered her child.
Wow. Well, again, the jail officials say it never happened. That woman, though, she does deserve some kind of Academy Award for really compelling Meryl Streep-like performance if she's making all of that up out of whole cloth. Affiliate WFTV reported today Jose Baez set to depose a Department of Children and Family Services worker who investigated a previous child abuse claim against Casey Anthony. Now, we don't have any independent knowledge of prior abuse allegations against Casey. Drew Findling, we were trying to figure out what this report was all about, because there is child services showing up after little Kaylee disappears, but we couldn't find any record of it before. What could this be all about, and what could it mean to the case?
Well, I've said all along that I was surprised that a defense was not being cultivated, which was the original charges went to neglectful parenting, that out of nowhere a defense could be, hey, she's a neglectful parent. She made some really poor choices. She let her kid go off with people she shouldn't have. She didn't report for 30 days. And we're here to say she's the worst person in the world, the worst parent in the world, but she didn't do anything to her child. They could be setting the stage for that, which I thought they would have done from the very beginning.
Well, Rebecca Rose Woodland, it seems like they're setting the stage for everything. They keep hammering in on Roy Kroc, so everybody's thinking, oh, they're going to try to pin it on him. They seem to be gathering information about old boyfriends, and there's speculation, could they be trying to pin it on them? And now we're hearing the bad parenting defense.
Yeah. They're throwing everything up against the wall.
They absolutely are. But you know what? They're trying to find out what there is. Who knows what? They are doing their form of discovery. Do they have a method to the madness? I hope so. She's facing death, Jane. I hope there's a method to the madness.
Well, we can't figure it out if there is, but we'll wait and see if anything emerges. I want to thank my excellent